In the past 3 years, more than 10,000 men, women and children have died trying to cross this stretch of water. Migrants. People. Each one had a story, a hope, a dream.
At least 61 people trying to reach Europe are known to have drowned after their boat sank in rough seas off southern Italy.
And this, remember, is the beginning, not the end of their journey through Europe.
Fear is an extraordinary force for motivating people. It pushes people to hurry up and determines their direction. What is it about being incarcerated in prison that drives so many to create great literature, great poetry or great art? In 2013, the Kurdish journalist Behrouz Boochani sought asylum in Australia. Unfortunately, he wasn't allowed in and was sent to the infamous Manus Island, and it was there that he wrote his book. He smuggled out via text and WhatsApp various sections, and finally it was compiled and won many awards. No Friend But the Mountains is a brave active witness to what humanity can go through when it's put through tremendous stress and strain. Not only being watched over all the time, being tortured, being deprived of friendship and of sustenance. Lent seems an appropriate time to look at writings from prison. We're reminded of the suffering that Jesus endured in his 40 days in the wilderness. Many of the people we're going to look at were incarcerated for a long period of time. And it's in that moment of being desperate, of being alone, of being separated from loved ones, that they were able to reflect on what it is to be human, what it is to be consoled. What interests us, I'm sure, is in the 21st century. Do the things which used to console us still console us? Do the things which used to work still work in supporting and elevating the human spirit?
My story is the same as 2,000 other innocent people who have been in prison in Manus and Nauru for seeking asylum in Australia.
Boochani was born in Iran in 1983, and he describes himself as a child of war because there was the ongoing conflict between extremists of Iraq and Iran. Most of these conflicts affected his homeland in western Iran, which is a Kurdish area. He became a journalist and wrote about many of the issues associated with these conflicts. And this caused him to be put under pressure and to actually feel there was a need to flee the country and gain freedom elsewhere. In his book, he details how he travelled and struggled to find himself close to Australia, on the shores of Australia, picked up there. Given Australia's strong refugee policy, he wasn't allowed entry, but instead was placed on the infamous Manus Island in Papua New Guinea, where he himself experienced and witnessed much torture, much suffering. There was suicides, there was mental health issues, and there was all sorts of deprivations of the human spirit. While living on Manus Island, he began to write and began, as we can see, smuggling his texts, his writings out via WhatsApp. He wasn't allowed a mobile phone and had to hide different devices at times, but nevertheless he managed to get an awful lot of writing out, which was put together and translated into the book No Friend But the Mountains. This has gone on to win many prizes around the world. The good news aspect of this story is Boochani has finally been given a home in New Zealand and he's no longer on Manus Island.
I was running for a long time. When I say running, I mean struggling, fighting. And it was the first time I felt that this story at least finished for me.
Chapter 6. This is written not long after Boochani finds himself in Manus Island. Days without any plans, lost and disorientated, mind still caught up in the waves of the ocean, searching for peace of mind on new plains. But the prison's plains are like a corridor leading to a fighter's gym, and the smell of warm sweat everywhere is driving everyone insane. 1 month has passed since I was exiled to Manus. I'm a piece of meat thrown into an unknown land, a prison of filth and heat. I dwell among a sea of people, with faces stained and shaped by anger, faces scarred with hostility. Every week 1 or 2 planes land in the island's wreck of an airport, and throngs of people disembark. Hours later they are tossed into the prison among the deafening ruckus of displaced people, like sheep to a slaughterhouse. Days in the prison begin with the commotion of long queues, long pulverising queues. Hungry prisoners rush out to their sweaty, sticky beds early in the morning, and like bees, they swarm the tent that makes up the dining area. In this instance, hungry actually means starving. Once dinner is over, no one can find anything else to eat. In the dead of night, the smell of hunger wafts through the entire prison. No one is allowed to take even 1 potato from the dining area. Anything that can be eaten has to be eaten right there under the tent. It is the last chance to fill their stomachs, stomachs that take over from the mind, stomachs with full authority over the body. Every time the moon appears, it is adorned with another rare and differently coloured halo. These auras are a spectacular gift, combining in the equatorial sky with a sea of eternal clouds. It's the quietest place in Fox Prison, there by the flowers resembling chamomile, a place where I can be alone for hours, away from the breathing of other people, the smell of other people, away from the commotion, the ruckus, the tumult. In a relentless prison, even the most talkative and boisterous prisoners feel the need to seek isolation, to search for a quiet, removed place. At best, no one will speak to me. Yet whenever I try to isolate myself, I find myself accompanied by a few people prowling in the vicinity. Or they put up their feet on the fences in the same space as me. I always expect the presence of a few prisoners or officers. It only takes one person to turn up and breathe in the area around me for it to be a nuisance.
I have always said that I believe in words and literature. I believe that literature has the potential to make change and challenge structures of power. Literature has the power to give us freedom. Yes, it is true. I have been in a cage for years, but throughout this time my mind has always been producing words, and these words have taken me across borders, taken me overseas and to unknown places. I truly believe words are more powerful than the fences of this place, this prison.
Boochani's story is a very personal story, but it sits within a wealth of Kurdish literature, poetry and art. In 2018, the British artist Banksy produced a work in New York in the Bowery which drew attention to the plight of the Kurdish artist Zehra Dogan. She'd been arrested and imprisoned in Turkey for producing a watercolour which depicted a Kurdish town, Nusaybin, destroyed by the Turkish army in 2015. What is it about spending time in prison that has the potential to smother, to kill the human spirit? The English philosopher Jeremy Bentham designed a prison called Panopticon. which positioned all the cells in a circle and could be overseen by just one jailer who stood in the central point. It basically had the principle that if all prisoners knew that they were observed at all time, 24 hours, 7 days a week, then this would begin to crush the human spirit. So Jeremy Bentham's invention of a prison where every inmate is watched all the time can be seen as a method of torture. But how different is that then from being seen every moment of the day, even in our dreams, by a divine God? Is it different to be watched and observed by God? How does it make us feel? For some people, they would say positively yes, that they enjoy knowing that a loving God observes them. For others, they would find this a challenge. So maybe we need to revisit and be creative about our understanding of how God interacts with human life. You won't find the term refugee in the Bible, but the Bible does mention strangers, sojourners, foreigners, and we use similar language today. We hear in the news all the time about displaced persons, refugees, migrants, immigrants, asylum seekers, stateless persons, or just plain visitors. When we read Matthew 25, verse 35, I was a stranger and you invited me in. This can remind us that Jesus said how his followers treated strangers should show disciple-like behaviour. How can we do that in our own communities today, in the communities at large and also within our church communities? Maybe discuss what positive steps we can show greater hospitality. Another passage, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 34. The foreigners residing among you must be treated as natives. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Most people who attend church will be aware of Jesus' instruction to love your neighbour as yourself, but maybe not so familiar with the law of Moses that has the same instruction for treating foreigners. So when we read and hear about refugees in the news, the 25.4 million refugees in the world today, 14 million who have been sent or had to flee their own country for more than 5 years. How does that passage in Leviticus affect us? How do we feel about creating an environment where the foreigner can feel that he is an equal?